Good afternoon, everybody. I hope the audio is clear. Hi, I'm Subhadra from Novartis. Hope you're all safe and doing very well in these times. Um, if there are any challenges in listening or hearing for housekeeping rules, just do type up in the chat box, please, and we will look at what the challenge is. From Novartis here, we have 4 of us who are going to have a chat with all of you. I am Subhadra. I am part of the disruptive innovation team there. And before that, I was part of the business analytics team, the team insights and analytics team, which is hosting the hiring challenge at HackerEarth today. And I also have with me Nirmalya Sen Gupta, who was supposed to join, unfortunately can't join today, but I have his team, Himadri and Bharat, who are joining our conversation today. Bharat and Himadri, can you say hi?
Hey, hi, hello everyone.
Hello everyone.
Nice to connect with all of you.
Thank you both. And we also have Arijit, Group Head in Business Analytics, responsible for our data science team. Hi, Arijit. Can you unmute yourself? Thanks.
Yeah, hi. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you, Arijit. And we would like to thank HackerEarth team for organizing this webinar for us. First of all, this is the first time that Novartis is hosting a hiring challenge at HackerEarth. So welcome all of you to both the hiring challenge as well as to this new mode of trying to find talent. What we will do is today we will spend about 5 minutes to 7 minutes on introduction to Novartis. And then we will dive straight into the kind of work we do and what actually are the components of work of both the profiles of data engineer as well as data science. And then, we'll talk about what are the opportunities there, what is the kind of work we do, and then potentially close that within 25 minutes or 30 minutes and then open it up for questions. So again, thank you all for joining. And I think now we will spend some time listening, talking about what Novartis is. But before that, we actually want to show you something that moves us every day in, engaging us, bringing us to work every single day. So Ramya, over to you. If you could just play the video for us. Thank you. Thank you, Ramya. Unfortunately, we don't have the audio coming in during the discussion today. So we'll just jump into, who we are and what we do. I wish you could hear the audio as well, but I think the message is that, we are here to save people's lives, and we'll do that with bringing in our talent, the skill sets, the innovation, the culture of the people, as well as new technologies and new age, advanced therapies, and, look at all the possible causes that uh, and try to look at how to save lives. That's the intent of our being here. And just to give you a glimpse of Novartis, we've been here for a long time. Novartis is a company which actually, ideally, as Novartis started about 150 years ago, but it has a legacy of almost 250 years as, smaller companies. We have become the conglomerate in about 140 years back. And Ramya, if you could move to the next slide. Our purpose is to reimagine medicine to improve and extend people's lives, as you saw. And And we coined this fairly recently over the last 3 4 years, because we are actually saying we used to do traditional medicine, traditional approach, but now we are looking at reimagining medicine. How are we reimagining? We are reimagining in the way we approach medicine. We are reimagining in the way that we apply technologies to address it, and we are reimagining the way we even reach out and it through our access programs, right? And what do we focus in terms of culture? I'm not too sure how many of you have actually have friends at Novartis. You would see that it's an extremely people-friendly culture. We work on individual trust. Because we believe that if we leave it to the associates, they are going to be inspired themselves. They're going to be curious, and that's why we lead a very, very unbossed culture. We are a very, very egalitarian team, and everybody is equal to voice their opinions, and that's why innovation thrives in this company. uh, and as you can see, what do we value? We value innovation. That you see, we have the biggest and the healthiest pipeline in the industry. We value collaboration, because until and unless all the teams, the small, big, large divisions within Novartis collaborate, we will not be able to get there. We have the courage to take risks. We have the courage to, fail. If an experiment fails, that's fine, but move on. And we give value performance, and above all, integrity and quality. So these are our driving forces behind who we are. Ramya, if you could move to the next slide. What you see here is the site head at Hyderabad, for which site you're actually, you know, getting looking at recruitment right now. Naveen has been the site head for about 8 to 9 years, and even today, all himself as well as all the associates at Novartis come to work very, very excited, because we know we are here to save lives. Even during COVID, there is so much that the associates here volunteer to do and enabled. And if you join, you will be able to contribute to many such programs, including access, including leading healthy lives, including social responsibility, aside from your work, any which way. Move on, Ramya. So Novartis operates in about 155 countries, and through our medicines, I am not too sure of how much you've read already about Novartis, but we have three main divisions: pharma, oncology, and Sandoz. Pharma and oncology together are innovative medicines, and Sandoz is our generics. Between all three, we have actually been able to reach 700 million patients through our medications in 2019. And aside from it, we've also reached so many more associated people through training and health education programs. So this is almost like 1/10 of the world population that we have reached already. All right, so moving on, Ramya. We have more than 100,000 associates with so many different nationalities, so diversity of all kinds, nationality, age, gender, uh, preferences, all of these are highly encouraged and included. We have a very, very inclusive environment. We focus a lot on employee training. So I'm not too sure how much you've heard about this from your colleagues, but we have enrolled into a lot of courses through Coursera. We've enabled that for our associates, even in LinkedIn Learning. And what happens is now, because of COVID and everybody locked down, we've also extended that access to one or two family members and friends. So we are actually trying to enable learning and improving and looking at getting new skills in this time. In terms of gender diversity, we have taken an epic pledge with UN, and we plan to get to 50% women in management in the board by 2025. Right now, we are at 44%. Yeah, Ramya, if you can move on. So I think this is the most important slide, and after this, I'll hand over to Himadri. Is we have 5 strategic priorities to grow our business. People, as I've already articulated, is the most important asset. The freedom, the inspiration, the curiosity that they draw is what moves the organization forward. The transformative innovation is where we're talking about advanced therapies. If you look at Novartis pipeline, there is a lot of advanced therapies that you're working on. Operational excellence, we would want to excel in whatever we do. And the big thing, is go big on data and digital. And I'm not too sure how many of you heard Vas Narasimhan, who's our CEO, who's been talking about using data and digital artificial intelligence to further our efforts in drug discovery, manufacturing, in sales and marketing, in every section that we actually do in clinical trials included. So this is where we'll spend some time. And last but not the least, and the most important cause as to why we are here is build trust with the society to actually help save lives as well as give back to the society. So these are our main pillars. But what we will spend a lot of time and energy today is how are we going big on data and digital? What are the kind of projects we do, and how you can contribute, to this organization. And before I just hand over to Himadri, I think it's important to note that we are the most forward-looking technology data science driven organization in pharma industry. You might have read about news of our collaboration with Microsoft and Googles of the world, where we are actually looking at frontiers in this space. So with that, I hand over to Himadri to walk you through our role profiles as well as the work profile. Himadri, over to you.
Hey, hi. Thanks so much, Subhadra. Hello, hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you can all hear me. So, my name is Himadri. I'm part of the Insights and Analytics organization. And today, what we'll try to do over the next few minutes is essentially walk you through and give you a sense of why people like me, who are essentially engineers, and very interestingly, all the panel members which we have here from Novartis, including Subhadra, Arijit, and Bharat, all of us are engineers. And so, if any of you, in the audience are wondering why people like you, engineers, techies, are in a webinar for a pharma company, maybe over the next few minutes we can give you a sense of the kind of problems we're trying to solve here over in Novartis in a pharma company, and why is there a requirement for people like you people with very strong engineering, technology, data science, statistics skills. Why is it required? So yeah, so if you go to the next slide, Ramya, briefly touching upon what Subhadra already mentioned, right? So for us, for Novartis, one of the key pillars or priorities has been data and digital. Now, this has come to the fore over the last 2 or 3 years, and this was because of the focus of our new CEO, Vas, who, when joined, put a lot of impetus on trying to use the benefits of data and digital and the underlying technologies which this brings in to try and figure out how we can enhance the way we discover medicine, how we reach out to our customers better, and how can we bring efficiencies within the organization. Now, if you see broadly, there are 4 pillars which essentially drive this overall data and digital strategic priorities. The last 3, if I can briefly talk about it, and the first one on the digital lighthouse is something which we'll focus a bit more on. So making Novartis digital, essentially the idea is if we want to take this step of sort of utilizing the power of data and digital, we have to first ensure that everyone within the organization is comfortable in this new domain. Everyone is enabled with the tools so that they can use it in whatever manner in their day-to-day life. And we upskill people so that they are comfortable in using these. So that's essentially the idea, where something which also Subhadra mentioned, that whenever someone joins within the organization, there are enough possibilities for you to upskill yourself and come to terms with this state of the art technologies which we'll use going ahead to make this vision a reality. Now, the third one is essentially a broader vision, which we realized that to make this happen is not a solo game which we can play and win. We require talents from both within the organization across the divisions which we have, but also outside in terms of partnerships with academia, partnership with within our pharma industry, and even beyond. So you see here some initiatives which are put in place, which will enable us to tap into those broader communities, build those partnerships, and then use those collective wisdom to move ahead in this endeavor of ours. And the fourth one essentially is again in a similar theme, where the idea is how can we leverage the strong, the pharma and medicines sort of expertise which Novartis has built over the past century or so, and you, along with that, bring in the new age technologies, along which the tech partners, the giants of the tech worlds like Microsoft, Amazon, Tencent bring in, and collaborate together to sort of solve these big problems. Now, if I go to the first sort of pillar, right, and this will be of interest, as you will see going ahead, everyone out in the panel here today, as part of the Insights and Analytics group, are closely associated with these big digital lighthouse programs, which we call them. Essentially, these are programs which span across the enterprise in terms of its value chain, right from our research group, which is the neighbor organization, through the development organization, which takes these molecules and tries to build a medicine out of it, to the commercial side of our operations, where we try to bring this into the clinics of our physicians, into the hands of our patients. So these big digital lighthouse programs essentially are what is underpinning our key sort of activities to bring about this transformation within the organization around utilizing data and digital. So if we move to the next slide, Ramya. Now all of this sounds, if it sounds, very, I would say, broad in nature and fantastic, it is. And as we mentioned earlier, right, this came into the fore in the last 2 years when our new CEO was joined the organization, and he really sort of rallied the whole organization behind his purpose of trying to tap into this latent asset of data which we have. Very interestingly, we as an organization have always considered, the molecules, the assets which we do research on to bring and develop uh, medicines as the core assets. But we realized, pretty early on that while doing all of this research, we are generating humongous amounts of data. And just to give you a sense, Novartis sits on 20 petabytes worth of data, and this is something which we generate year on year. Right now, essentially, what was tried to envision is how can we tap into this latent asset which we have and use that to sort of further our research and discovery initiatives and other efficiency driven, operation driven ideas, right? And very quickly, we realized two things. One, that the amount of data which we have in Novartis is humongous and it has not been tapped in till now. So we tried to do that. And once we tried to tap into this data, we sort of honed in on the second realization, which essentially was to do any sort of sophisticated analysis, any statistical machine learning algorithms you try to put onto these data sets. It is very difficult to do this because one, these data sets resides in very siloed manner. It is in different parts of our organization, not really clean, not really linked. So there were a lot of challenges in terms of trying to execute on our data and digital vision, given these challenges which we had. Now, if there's two things if I would like you to take away from today's session, I would say those would be: one, keep in mind the one key priority, the first priority essentially, which we're all trying to solve here, is how to clean and link this humongous data asset which we're sitting on. And second, once we try and do that, how can we leverage the advanced new age technologies and tools which are enabled through statistics, data science, artificial intelligence to tap into this latent asset and bring about newer ways of drug discovery, newer ways of reaching to our first patients and customers, right? And all of the, I would say, fantastic stuff which you're envisioning to do. Perfect. So if we move ahead, right? Next slide. So what we'll do is we'll focus on the first pillar, on these 12 digital lighthouses. And why I say this is because this group, the Insights and Analytics organization, which we are currently representing today, and the team which you have all sort of applied for or will sort of apply for through this data challenge, this is one of the core groups who are part of these digital lighthouse initiatives. So if you make it through and become part of our team, you will essentially be exposed to and have the opportunity to work on this massive digital initiatives, this enterprise level sort of programs, which has immense potential in terms of their impact which it can bring about in the organization, but also in terms of the amount of learning which we'll get out of these by being exposed to these programs. It's tremendous. It's humongous. I mean, if you go to the next slide, you can just get a sense of the scale which you're talking about. So these are just some of the 12 lighthouse programs, but there are also many others beyond this. So you'll see that these lighthouse programs which you're talking about are part of different domains. So there are programs which essentially are trying to figure out how can we, sort of recreate the map of life, recreate the map of a human body, essentially. So that can we try and answer questions like, given a set of attributes of a patient, can we predict what sort of disease he can have in the next 5 years? Can we predict if a drug will work on him? So these are some of the things which till now could only be answered through clinical trials, which were expensive, which spanned over years and years of research, and you never really knew whether at the end of the day you'd have success in terms of will be trying to address those questions or not. And that is where we're trying to bring in these advanced data and digital technologies to try and answer this in silicon instead of in situ. Similarly, you see initiatives around digital therapeutics. We're trying to bring about and do research on, digital therapeutics, which are essentially apps or games which can be used when patients to bring about improvement in their disease conditions. Something like, end-to-end process automations, which will sort of address our need to make our organizations much more leaner and agile and bring about those changes in transformation to get us to a state of self-sufficiency and sort of operational excellence. You have AI-enabled manufacturing and supply. So you see, in terms of the applications of data and digital, all of these programs essentially will rely on those technologies to bring about this change and address the big questions for each of these individual programs. Now, I can talk to you about one of the programs, one of the lighthouses, which I am individually part of. So the idea of this program, which I'm currently engaged with, is to bring about a single unified platform, which will help us, the enterprise, to have one single portfolio planning capability, which essentially means that with this platform, we'll have an ability to deep dive into our entire R&D pipeline, an ability to find all the projects from both discovery through research and commercialization phases, and see how this has evolved over a period of its life cycle. The ability to simulate scenarios, make critical decisions in terms of whether to invest further in those programs or stop it, run, very next gen simulation data capability driven, I would say, simulations on those programs, right? So to do this, what we're trying to do is we're bringing data from our research organization, from a development organization, from the commercial side. And the scale of this program is huge. We're talking about thousands of assets, thousands of molecules, and data related to those thousand assets, which runs into millions, and trying to harmonize this data, master this data, and then unifying all of those, wherein it becomes ready for all of those statistical methods, machine learning algorithms to be applied to do those sophisticated analysis. So this is just one program I'm talking about, and as I mentioned, all of these 12 lighthouses which you see on your screen is of such scales. And by being part of this insights and analytics organization, you will be at the forefront to sort of lead some of these work streams and work with people across the organization, both from the business domain, people with who are part of the data science organizations, people from the IT organizations, right? All of these people, you'll work in a cross-functional and cross-domain teams to address these big, huge, humongous problems and address them through your skill sets, right? So hopefully I could give you a brief sense of the kind of problems we're trying to tackle here and how this team, the Insights and Analytics Group here in Hyderabad, is one of the key partners in this endeavor of bringing about this transformation in Novartis, a pharma organization, by utilizing this next gen data and digital technologies. Right. Maybe what I'll do is I'll stop here. If there are any questions, we can take it now, or I can hand it over now to my colleagues Bharat and Arijit, who will walk you through, how in our individual functions, in our roles, we are trying to address these big problems through specific skill sets and capabilities and services within our domains. Right. Thank you. If there are no questions, I'll hand it over to my colleague Bharat.
Thank you, Madri.
Next slide,
Can we
please.
move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Bharat. I'm a group lead with DAS. So DAS stands for Data as a Service, and this DAS is a function which is part of NBS, which stands for Novartis Business Services. Right now, DAS as a function was created to support Novartis in its mission towards data and digital. We, as data scientists, know how much we crave for clean data and how much we spend time on it to get it cleaned. Right? Given this scenario, think about Novartis. Novartis is a very large organization spread across the globe with its presence in 100 odd countries and generates and consumes data which is of the scale of petabytes, right? And given this amount of data, and when you add the presence of this data in hundreds of systems across the globe in multiple languages, the complexity goes in par. You literally try to get a understanding of this data. To get an understanding of data, it'll take a lot of time. Now, given this kind of a scenario, when we started moving towards data and digital, we realized that data and digital can be achieved when we have a data in a clean and linkable format, where any person from any part of Novartis can link his data to any other data set across Novartis. Now, this is a dream which we plan to achieve, and we are working towards that goal. And data as a service function is one of the main function which will work or help Novartis to achieve this goal. Right? And we as part of data as a service team, what we do is we structure the data, analyze the data, clean it, and link it. We work with our data strategy leadership to support various lighthouse projects, like the lighthouse projects which you have just seen in our previous slide. There are multiple lighthouse projects. These lighthouse projects are those projects which are very large scale projects set up for different streams of Novartis or different verticals, right? To support different goals in each area. And we as a team are, our main aim is to support each of these lighthouses so that we can bring in our data which is clean and linked. Now, only this kind of data will help us move very fast into the data and digital space, and will help our futuristic technologies like artificial intelligence and data science, right? Now, coming to our services, we have 4 services. One is data cataloging and modeling, the second is data unification, third is MDM stewardship, and then fourth is the data enablement and BYODs. Now, when we speak about data cataloging and modeling, what we do is catalog. We do there are two parts to it. One is cataloging the data to know where, if I have to search for a physician of a particular country, I should know where does this data exist, it's not just which file, I should also be knowing where all does it exist. So cataloging helps us through this. So it is kind of creating a metadata of, right? And then comes in the modeling part. We create different kinds of models, starting from logical, semantic, and business models, right? And then apart from that, the second part goes into data unification. Now, in as part of data unification, we help clean and link data here. So we try to connect the data across the globe. We try to connect this data across the globe, across multiple data domains. That is data unification. Now, MDM part, I think most of us would have heard it. This is MDM data stewardship, and which forms generally the core of any data systems. Data enablement and BYODs, this is a place where we actually uh, tend to bend the curve, right? So BYOD stands for Bring Your Own Data, where we help people teach and help them understand how to do this cleaning and linking, and how can they implement our services in their own systems. So this is mainly about services. Now, when we come to capabilities, yeah, we have data engineers, data programmers, data stewards, ontologists, and semantic modelers. Many of them come from of these people are generally some of them are PhD, some of them have a high experience around 10 to 12 years as well. When it comes to partnerships, we have two major partnerships. One is the academia, where we reach out to multiple educational institutions, where we work with them on certain research projects to help us solve some of our complex problems. And when it comes to internal and external partners, we have our internal partners, which are IT and data science. And then we have our external partners as well, who are some of our startups, who help us with their cutting edge technology ideas, as well as their solutions, which help us boost our work towards data and digital. Thank you. With that, I can give it over to Arjit.
Hey, hi. Thank you, Bharat, for that background. Can someone confirm if I'm audible? I hope I am.
You're audible,
Yes,
Arjit.
we can hear you.
Okay, great. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So, so guys, thanks for holding on till now, and this is where we come to probably a little bit of the exact applications that we are trying to build. What Himadri spoke about is the really large, massive scaled applications that we are building enterprise wide, um, to create like org wide impact from a data and digital standpoint. What Bharat spoke about is the base on which all of this analysis or all of this analytics would actually need to stand, the base that it would need to stand on, right? And what I'm going to cover here is basically the kind of applications, or the very specific kind of problems that we are trying to solve from a data science standpoint, right? So if you look at the breadth of the applications, you'll find all three fundamental problem statements that you'll see. It's either classification, or it's optimization, or it's predictions. So we cover all of that. And one quick aside is, even aside of this 12, the 12 data lighthouse projects that we have said, and these are called lighthouses almost because we as a large ship are sort of steering in the dark in the absence of very good data, not in the absence of very good data, but in the absence of well integrated data. So we are sort of sailing in the dark, and those are the lighthouses that basically are going to guide us to safe harbors. But during this entire journey, there will also be needs of doing specific things which are outside of these large initiatives, which are also very business critical, and which also create a lot of immediate impact. And those are some of the examples that I'm also going to talk to you about. So one of the classic problems that we actually have been working on for quite some time, and in fact more than 10 years, even when it was not very fashionable to use data science for decision making, promotion mix modeling. So what we do here is we have a marketing budget, and we try to figure out how best to optimally allocate that marketing budget across different channels. So essentially the math that runs, uh, it gives us the ROI curves of at what spend levels across each channel, for what spend levels, what is the kind of ROI that you're going to get. And going by that, when you try to optimize it for a fixed amount of marketing budget, we essentially get an optimal allocation that would give us a maximum ROI. You can do slight variations of that also, where maybe not maximum ROI, but a brand is launching and you don't care about the ROI, you just want to hit maximum sales, or you want to hit maximum market share, either of those things. In those kinds of situations, you're not really trying to optimize the ROI or maximize the ROI, but you're essentially trying to maximize the sales. So you can actually vary the objective functions and for the specific business ask that is there at that point in time, to answer those specific questions. So that's one large example of stuff that we do. If you look at behavioral segmentation, this is more of classification problems. A lot of it we do straight from the data itself. A lot of it might actually happen, let's say, from a primary market research that tells us about, okay, there are certain kinds of segments, attitudinal, that exist, and you're trying to find the data markers to actually simulate those segments and create the right clusters. So the segmentation problems, I think from a historical standpoint, 5-6 years back, we used to do largely volume-based stratification, and we are now getting to a point where we are using a lot of different inputs, including predictive inputs also, especially for launch brands. We are using a lot of predictive inputs for segmentation as well. Yeah. So that's a little more on the on the classification side. Multi-channel analytics, I'll not get into a lot of detail, because at least for this group, this is something that we are just building up. It's not something that we have that we are doing at a very large scale, and even then there has been quite a bit of work that's been done on this. So we are just shaping this up as we go. Social media analytics is another very large is also another very large area of interest. Here again, we are still evolving. There's a lot of sentiment analysis. There's a lot of applications of NLP that has happened in the past. But we are now getting to a point where we are looking at even the effectiveness of messages that we are disseminating on social media, reactions that we are getting to our messages, as well as identifying key opinion leaders on social media who we need to work with. Yeah. So on the social media front, that's a quick summary of everything that we are doing. Real world evidence is another large area, and what we do here is we look at explicit data of how our drugs are being used in the market. A lot of the clinical trials, and anybody that's worked on data science always identifies the pharma industry as the textbook examples of how to do double-blinded trials. um, while that's the traditional method of doing it, that's more in a controlled environment. However, when a drug is launched and there's real world evidence of how the drugs are being used, how quickly are people needed to shift out of a particular therapy, or are there new branches that are getting created because of insertion of a new drug into the pipeline? So what do the patient journeys look like, and how do they change when a particular drug is inserted into the market? So those kinds of mappings, this is very similar to a consumer journey maps that we frequently create. So that's another kind of that's another large area where we're seeing a lot of work. And then comes predictions, which is the last ticket that you'll see here. So the predictive models, I mean, I really don't probably want to go into too much of detail, but the predictive models essentially come in extremely handy, especially during launches where we are trying to find early adopters, potential early adopters of our product, so that we can channelize our sales and marketing spend into uh, uh, very focused way of speaking to these early adopters more than others. Also looking at opinion leaders, etc. But those are areas where we use a lot of predictions. Even with competitor brand launches, we try to find who amongst our high writing physicians are the ones who amongst our biggest customers basically are the ones at risk and might actually be switching around to a new product that's coming up, so that we can formulate a launch strategy. So that sort of is about the broad expanse of things that we're working on. The only other thing, and I know we are running a little short on time, so I'll just probably take a couple of more minutes and then open up for questions. But one of the things that I would want you guys to know is that I think pharma in general as an industry, and we at Novartis as a company, are actually at a very unique spot in the world today. If you look at other industries, and I'm sure a lot of you would probably have not thought about pharma as an industry where data science gets used. And we traditionally think of how risk models are created. So banking and financial services has done a lot of work on it. How market basket analysis gets done, customer segmentation gets done, etc. More on the retail side. We know of those examples being very widely used in the industry. Fact is that pharma is traditionally a little bit of laggard when it comes to using advanced analytics or using analytical techniques for decision making. And I think now that we are actually realizing that there's a major potential for the data to be used in ways we have never imagined before, it actually places us in a very unique position where it's an open field right in front of us, and the amount of experimentation that we can do is massive. There's a lot of, like Subhadra mentioned, there's a lot of appetite for failure as well, because anything new that you try, you don't anticipate that everything is going to work. And one of the things that we keep reminding ourselves is that you know if we have a very high success rate, we are not trying hard enough, right? So that's the kind of situation that we are in, where there's a green field ahead of us. It's not like if you go and work for example, a lot of captive units in the BFSI sector, right? So everybody essentially runs one of these captive units in BFSI. There are risk models that just need probably minor tweaking, or there are some economic forecasting, macroeconomic forecasting models that probably just need minor tweaking, but the job is basically done. There's nothing that you're going to create from scratch. Yeah. And a lot of people that we speak to, they look at that tedium, and when they get inserted into our environment, on one hand, there would be some people who might get pretty lost, thinking that how do I swim in these waters? And then there are others who would actually look at it as a massive opportunity that's out there. Nothing has been done before, and it's a complete green field ahead of us. And the opportunity to create impact and the opportunity to do things which have not been tried before is absolutely immense. So that's in general as an industry. What happens with Novartis, the other unique positioning that we have at Novartis, is that the center that we have here has been around for more than 10 years now. Um, Most centers tend to work a little bit as a back office, where there's a lot of transactional requests that come. there's a particular data pull or somebody has actually solved it in their head and they're asking you to execute on it. That's how a lot of these execution centers happen. In case of Novartis, I think we started that way, but we have gone through a massive evolution over the course of the last 5-6 years. And the point we are at today, our stakeholders are coming to us and basically saying that you are the ones who have to actually lead this. We want to hear ideas from you. You are expected to be consultative, bring new ideas at the table, implement them. So it's not just execution, but or an implementation partner even, but also a thought partner. And that's the journey that I think we have traversed largely. And even within the pharma industry, given that we have this huge open space, the positioning of Novartis in terms of the ask and the expectations that our stakeholders have of us, I think that's pretty unique, that you'll probably see in the entire scheme of things in these global competency centers that you'll find across India. So I'll stop at that. I know I have been rambling on a little bit, but I'll stop at that and we'll open up for questions.
Thank you, Arijit. Actually, there are a number of questions that came. Maybe I can moderate the ones that I haven't answered yet, right? I think there is one on what is the tech stack used for data analytics? Do you want to take that, Arijit?
Sure. So from a tech stack standpoint, there are multiple systems that are used. It depends quite a bit from which geography it is in. There's no one system where all of that happens. There's one. I can talk about a few, right? So one, for example, is in the US, where we are creating a new infrastructure out there. It carries a name of Glassbox, but that's the infrastructure which is being built, where there's also an analytical workbench for experimentation, and then a complete a complete stack essentially for scaling up any of the products. There's another system which is called Avico. I think these are in public domain, so we can speak about it. Which is basically a Hadoop cluster-based system where massive data around patient records actually exists. So that's only one of the major data sets. But essentially, the way this infrastructure works is you can basically set up your own space in it. There's a node that they would create, and for the major initiatives, there's that space that is created. Um, so a major one of the biggest initiatives, you would see that in the 12 lighthouses. It's called Data 42. It is where all of our clinical trial results come in. That actually sits on that system as one of the major initiatives. Multi-country initiatives. One is called Xdroid. That actually sits on that system. So there are different versions of these infrastructures, and maybe Himadri, you can probably also chip in here if you have more details of the exact tech stack that is there.
Sure, I think yes, thanks, Sarijit. So there are a lot of these which you can probably get into, but for lack of time, what I would say is something which also Bharat mentioned in the DAS overview, that we're also looking at next-gen technologies like semantic modeling stuff, which we'll try to do, wherein we're trying to incorporate and integrate such platforms like Tamer, Pool Party, Palantir. These are next-gen tools which will allow you to do semantic modelings. We have platforms like Alteryx, tools like Alteryx, which we use for data modeling as well. So there are a lot of these things which we use. I mean, in terms of restrictions to use technologies, I think there is no restrictions as such. But obviously, going ahead, we'll try and harmonize the usage of tools and technologies specific to use cases, which can be used across all these lighthouses and initiatives. Yep.
Okay, I
Yeah.
think one other question, Himadri, that you could touch base on, which I think I've not answered, is what is the career path for the data engineers?
Sure, definitely. So there are two ways of looking at it. One, the traditional way essentially is for a data engineer, and even for going there, I mean, just to go back to the point which Bharat mentioned, that data as a service, the group which we have, which is where the data engineers essentially would join. This group is pretty nascent and new compared to all the other services which you talked about, right? So this has been in the scenario for about 1.5 years now. So as such, purely in terms of the opportunities, it's massive. I mean, we're still growing. We're looking out for more people, and as we sort of scale, the opportunities will also appropriately grow. For data engineers, you can grow from an analyst to, let's say, a lead, become the franchise head. You can lead a function. I mean, that's if that's the career path you want to take over a period of time, become SME and grow vertically. You can move vertically, horizontally as well. This is to the point which Arijit was mentioning. The unique position Novartis Hyderabad has is all of the analytical functions reside in under this one house, and this cuts across domains, cuts across business units, right? So you are sort of encouraged to look out, broaden your skill sets. You can join as a data engineer and become an ontologist. You can become a data scientist. You can move into a commercial domain and become a insights and analytics specialist, do market research or competitive intelligence. So really, in terms of the opportunities, I think there is no end what you can explore within this organization.
Thank you, Himadri. I
Yeah,
think
thanks.
one question I do want to answer is, I think I'm not too sure if it's not been clear, but there are two challenges running. One is on the data engineer and one is on the data science. And as you could see, Himadri and Bharat covered the data engineer kind of profile and the work, and Arijit covered the data science part of the role. So please look for the right things in the Hacker webpage, in the HackerEarth webpage. You will see that there are two challenges posted from Novartis, and this webinar addresses both of them. Yeah, sorry, Arijit, you were saying something?
No, no. So I saw a few other questions that were open also out there. So maybe we want to quickly run through those a little bit. I saw some of them have been answered. So maybe we can go through that. Yeah.
Do you want to take one
So
question? You have a question in mind, or do
yeah.
you
So
want me
I'm
to
seeing
read it?
some. Right. So I'm seeing right at the end, why the strict colleges criteria and will you hire freshers for data science roles? I think, see, this is an open challenge so far as I'm concerned. I think, we are open to, I think we are open to any colleges, any background, and that's the reason that we are putting in a specific challenge. And then there will be further stages to it where we need you to be taking us through your thought process and everything. So is this actually restricted for any set of colleges or anything?
Arijit,
Is
it's
that how
not.
we designed it?
Arijit, this is not for open for freshers. It's open for a few years of experience kind of profile. There
Okay,
may be other challenges, and especially for freshers, we need to go through the college recruitment route. But
right,
having said that, I think for anybody with anything more than not just fresher, but other experienced associates, if it's not this challenge, there may be more coming up, as well as there would be a lot of
sure,
roles available on Novartis website. So please do look at it. This is just the first hiring challenge that we started with
right,
HackerEarth kind of platforms, and I'm certain that you'll come across more and more.
right, sure. The other question that I saw was what measures are we taking to handle the data privacy issues of customers? This is so when you say customers, we essentially mean internal stakeholders. We don't have any external customers that we are working with, but obviously we as Novartis look at physicians as well as patients technically as customers. And that's some of the most sensitive data that we have. So for a company of our size, to operate without a risk of reputation, we have to have all privacy issues in place. If you're asking this question from a point of view of, what kind of systems or checkpoints are in place so that access to that data is not a challenge, That's far less of a challenge for us because we are an internal group. So we practically have access to any data that's there within the company, provided the owner of the data is fine, with the specific purpose for which we are asking for that data. So access to data is not a challenge at all for us, like you would see in some other in vendor organizations where there's data that's restricted for people. Obviously, there would be certain things that would be masked, patient details that would be anonymized and stuff like that. But with the right safeguards, there's practically every bit of data within the company that we have access to for the right reason.
Okay, I think we're run out of time. I'll just answer two more questions. I think one is what's next after this in various forms. I'm reading that. We are looking at options given COVID situation. It could either be a face-to-face interview or in-place hackathon. At the site hackathon. So we could look at that as a next step, but we will come back to you. Some of you have asked if the challenge is already live. I think, yeah, from tomorrow it's going to be live. The registrations are on. Last question I want to answer is how is Novartis helping COVID? I'm not too sure if you've read the news and all, but we are participating in various ways. We have already given 130 million doses of hydroxychloroquine through Sandoz, and we are also participating in various initiatives within India and US, including research along with the technology companies. So there's a bunch of news out there. Please do go and read them. We've run out of time, but I think we've tried to answer most of the questions. So thank you everybody for participating, and have a good day. Thanks the panel for walking us through. Again, I would want to reiterate, please do look at two hiring challenges, one for data engineer and one for data science. Thanks, guys. Thanks,
Sure.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Bye bye.
Bye.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone.
Thank you, Ramya. Thank you, HackerEarth team.
Thank you.
Thank you.